am ready.
Okay. All right. Well,
how did we start this last time? Welcome, guys.
Okay, hold on. All right. Well, welcome to our very first podcast.
No, we need to be more excited.
Okay, go ahead. You can take it this time. Good.
Well, hello and welcome to our first ever podcast. We're so excited to be starting this adventure with you guys. Me and Cole have never had a podcast before. We hear that it's all the rage, so we really wanted to start one. And it's called Film School Dropouts because Cole and I met in film school. And actually, we both graduated. So despite the name, we're actually very qualified to talk about films and stuff like that. And so that's exactly what this podcast is going to be. We're going to talk about relevant TV shows, movies, new, old, anything really that's cool, interesting. And we're going to talk about them. And hopefully the goal is to be fun and interesting and to have really interesting discussion, but also to not take ourselves too seriously, because at the end of the day, we're film lovers and we love story, and we don't think that we're experts. We just really enjoy talking about it. So yeah.
And we're really excited. I'm really excited to be here and start a podcast.
Yeah.
It's going to be really fun.
Very fun.
And our first episode is none other than Obi-Wan Kenobi, the show.
Yeah, the Kenobi show, which was quite the way to start. And so we're going to kind of talk about, now that the show's finished, all 6 episodes. I think it was last week, right, that it came out?
Yes.
Last one?
Yeah, last Wednesday.
So, the whole show's been released, and we're going to just discuss kind of our thoughts about the show overall. This is actually our second time recording this episode because we tried to talk about each episode individually and it was 3 hours. So hopefully we we're not going to talk that long this time. But if you guys do want like the full director's cut of our thoughts on the Kenobi show,
original take.
We do have a 3-hour version of this podcast. So, but yeah, let's talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi. It was quite a big deal for me, as I'm sure it was for you, when the show got announced. It got announced in 2019, so like 3 years ago now, at the Disney conference, D23 is what it's called, where they talk about a whole bunch of upcoming stuff. It's kind of like WDC.
It's like E3 for me.
Yeah, there you go. I was trying to think of the Apple one and I couldn't. For Disney, they released a whole bunch of or announced a whole bunch of stuff, some of which has come out already. We got Bad Batch. We got a whole bunch of stuff.
Andor.
And we haven't gotten Andor yet, but everyone's so excited for Andor. My personal favorite, the one that I was most stoked about, was Obi-Wan Kenobi. We're both prequel babies. We were born and grew up in that era. Revenge of the Sith. It's kind of a little carried away there. Is actually the first Star Wars movie that I saw in theaters. Had the privilege of seeing it, and it was pretty crazy. I was like probably 6, 7 years old.
Yeah, you were lucky. I didn't get to see it in theaters. Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
It's wild. I was definitely not supposed to be in that theater.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as a result, that's one of my favorite Star Wars movies, and it's really cool that Lucasfilm and Disney decided to kind of explore the time after that movie and before A New Hope, because, and I was really excited because those characters, Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker, were so important to me growing up. And so when they're headlining this series and they're confirmed to come back and play those characters, you're just so excited, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so I was stoked, man. It couldn't have gotten here quicker. 3 years is wild because it feels like I'm still waiting for it. But
and we'll talk about that.
Yeah. but yeah, we got the show. And overall, I think most people are really happy with it. I think it was a really good show that overall added to Star Wars and added to the characters that we already love and know very well, which is hard to do, especially for it being kind of like in a weird in-between phase. Like we know what happened before and we know what happens after. So to kind of explore this intermediate stage in these characters' lives and make it interesting and compelling is a hard task to do. And I think the show explored some really cool things.
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of hit it on the nose with that. Basically, when I first saw the first episode of the show, I was like, this is a love letter to the prequels.
Yeah.
Like, the very first shot is just, a collage of prequel footage. And I'm just like, this is crazy. Like, it really goes to show how far the prequels have come.
Yeah.
And I really love that. Like Disney really just dropped a bunch of prequel stuff on a new show, and the prequels are back in the limelight.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very happy that this is here. And I mean, immediately too, when in the fresh new scenes of Disney that they made, it was a prequel moment. Like we were jumped right into episode 3.
Yeah.
With Order 66.
Yep.
And that was just crazy. And, they didn't just stop there though. They went and did flashbacks with Hayden and Obi-Wan. And that was crazy to see.
Yeah.
And, we all also obviously at the ending too with Qui-Gon coming back.
Yeah.
That was crazy too. Since 1999.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Qui-Gon since 1999. That's a long time.
Did Liam Neeson voice Qui-Gon in the Clone Wars, or was it a different?
He did.
Oh, he did.
I'm
Okay.
pretty, I'm pretty sure he did.
Interesting.
And what was funny about this is Liam Neeson, he did an interview and someone was like, so you want to come back to do Qui-Gon, would you? And he's like, oh, I would love to come back and do Qui-Gon. And he's like, well, but then he goes, I would only do it for like a movie. Like I would never do it for a show. And all the fans were like, oh, you're bullshitting. You're bullshitting. I knew he was bullshitting the entire time. But
that's like Samuel L. Jackson, who says he wants to come back into Star Wars as Mace Windu so badly.
Yeah.
Maybe he's alive somewhere, because we learned in this series that getting stabbed or fatally wounded means nothing anymore. So, oh man.
It all started with Darth Maul.
Yeah. And then Palp.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Yeah, well, he had clones and stuff. But yeah, man. So the show sets up some really interesting stuff. Some of it explores well. Some of it doesn't explore super well. Qui-Gon is one of the things that it brings up. Obi-Wan's kind of set up as this like jaded Jedi who really kind of carries the weight of everything that happened, the downfall of the galaxy, kind of on his own shoulders and by himself. He has a lot of regret and a lot of guilt regarding what happened with Anakin. Obviously, he was never supposed to train him to begin with. Anakin was supposed to be Qui-Gon's apprentice, and Obi-Wan kind of like in Qui-Gon's dying wish was to have him train him. And so it's kind of tragic because it's something that he never wanted to begin with, but he tried his best and failed at it. And so, and it ended up in the, fall of the Jedi Order and of the Republic and into this new era of like a, tyranny that exists in the form of the Empire. And so something that he's been trying to do for the past 10 years is kind of commune with Qui-Gon. And it is very clear in the show that hasn't succeeded once. And you get the impression that it's because that he's so disconnected from the Force that he's just not able to kind of, do that. And that's kind of what
he's depressed.
Yeah.
He's on his own. And I wanted to touch base on that too. Like, we do know all that history, and I think Disney really followed up well with it. Like, the last time we see Obi-Wan is he gives Luke away to Owen. Yeah. And we don't see him again until New Hope. And you're just left there wondering, well, what did he do all that time? Yeah. Well, I feel like Disney really did a good job at showing what he does, because I mean, it makes sense. You know, what are you going to do for 20 years on a desert planet?
Yeah.
Well, you need to feed yourself.
Yeah.
You know, so he becomes a citizen. He starts working.
Yeah.
You know, and you mentioned how, you know, he hasn't cut off himself from the Force, and you know, and I feel like they did a really good job of showing that, like, he couldn't help that citizen when the citizen needed him. And it was interesting. I'm glad that Disney, you know, put him that way.
Yeah, it's totally within his character. I mean, like, if you're kind of forced into hiding, Obi-Wan's not the type of person to kind of like make money through illegal operations or anything like that. He's like a very honest, like hardworking, just genuine kind of guy. Yeah. And so it makes sense that he's kind of been just like being a normal dude for the past 10 years.
That's another point too, is I wanted to make, was Disney actually really did well at just making Obi-Wan feel like Obi-Wan, especially like the Obi-Wan from the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
This Obi-Wan from the Kenobi show does really feel like, you know, Obi-Wan, because you know that can happen sometimes when you make a new show or any new property. They can just miss the mark with the character. But Obi-Wan did feel like himself, like he was smart. Like he didn't, you know, when the other Jedi came in, he said, hey, you know, your best bet is to leave. Just put the lightsaber in the sand. That's something that, you know, I feel like Obi-Wan would be smart enough to know. Like, you better just, you know, run while you still can. And then as he progresses in the show too, I feel like they did a good job with his character as well, staying true to his character. Like, yeah, he gives himself up to Reva, you know, like he does all these crazy things, like go to the Inquisitorious place by himself, like underwater, like just all these things. Like Obi-Wan would do this, and he's still doing it in his like 50s or whatever.
Right.
So I'm really glad that they kept true to his character.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of it too, I mean, it's just like the familiarity of having Ewan McGregor kind of playing that character, who you really know and you feel in his performance that Ewan really loves the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he, you know, has like such a deep connection with playing that character that it comes across in that show, which is really great. Like, not only is that character handled very well in terms of the writing and the development of the show, but also, you know, just it comes across in Ewan's performance that he just like really wants to do the best that he can for that character. And I feel the same way about Hayden Christensen as Anakin.
I was just about to say,
and
Christensen too.
Yeah. They love these characters so much. And I think that they're just,
and Liam Neeson.
And Liam Neeson, man. Yeah. They're just, you get the sense that they're like as big of fans for the show as the fans are, which is cool. Yeah. But Obi-Wan was handled great. His whole kind of like arc from being this, I hate the world that I created and it's all my fault, to like, maybe I can kind of fix some of it. You know, maybe it's not all terrible. Maybe there's opportunity to right some of the wrongs. And kind of the way that gets presented to him and the opportunity to rescue and save Leia, is really good, man. And that's another like huge highlight for the show is Leia and the way that she's written and the little actress that portrays her, man, such a good job. Yeah.
They really did a good job of casting. But real quick, I just want to talk about, you know, that whole plot line as well. Like, if you were going to tell me that Obi-Wan left Tatooine, and you told me that the reason was to go save Leia, like I believe that. Like, that's a good reason to leave Tatooine. But yeah, speaking of Leia, the actress did a phenomenal job. It feels like a young Leia.
It really
Leia.
does.
And
it really does.
Even Obi-Wan at one point goes, "Are you sure you're 10 years old?" Like that scene is funny because Obi-Wan knows she's 10 years old. It's just, you know, she's just she's crazy. Like, already that's young senator, you know?
I feel like they have done a few times now where they've recast characters to kind of portray a younger version of themselves. Actually, Ewan McGregor is an example of that, funnily enough. But I feel like this occasion with Leia is one of the best that we've seen of that. We've seen it with Han Solo, where they recast him for his solo movie, no pun intended. We've seen it a few times, but Leia's, man, she's been my favorite. She's like funny, quick-witted, smart, clever, rebellious. Like she's literally Leia.
Yeah, and just the dynamic between him or her and Obi-Wan as well. Like when on episode 3, when Obi-Wan has to tell her like about her mother, it just hits hard.
It does.
And just their relationship, they go from, like Obi-Wan just kind of being that father figure, like that, or I guess that older brother kind of figure, because he has to constantly like scold her and be like, hey, no. And then finally, like, they come on the same terms. Yeah. And, she trusts him, he trusts her, and I love that, Right. And then when you watch A New Hope and you see like she goes like, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, like it's kind of fun. Yeah. Like Obi-Wan's just sitting there like scratching his beard.
Like, here we go again.
He doesn't have that interaction with Luke yet, so it's like kind of fun. Like he's about to start that interaction with Luke, but he's already been there with Leia. Yeah. So
that's
I like
interesting.
That. Like
their relationship is really touching, especially because that he was obviously important to Anakin, but also like he was pretty important to Padme too. Like they were pretty pretty close, and it's really great when he kind of brings up that he sees her parents in her. It happens on like 2 occasions, I think, in episode 3 and then like the last episode.
It's episode 2 and episode 3.
Okay.
And then I think they do it again.
And then the last one, he does it like really in depth. It's just like so touching, man. It's just like it bridges the gap between like Anakin and Padme and Luke and Leia, that with a character that we already know and we trust and we like, and it's just like really touching. So I'm a big fan of their dynamic, and using Leia as kind of a way to kind of like incite this whole thing of making Obi-Wan kind of come out of his grief and out of his sorrow and all of this stuff that he is going through, using her as an opportunity to kind of like get out of that and kind of become the like hopeful version of Obi-Wan Kenobi that we see in A New Hope with Alec Guinness. It's a clever way to do it, and I'm a fan of it.
Well, and also the person that starts all this, the villain, I think she's also a really cool and new dynamic.
Yes, Reva, which not everyone has that opinion of her.
And I feel like that's why I wanted to express this, because I think I have that opinion where I think she is a good character and a good villain. Yeah. And I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. She is not just some regular old, Sith villain, good versus bad. She's not like a typical villain. She actually has like development and character, and she has reasons and motivations. Like she's here to get Obi-Wan, but you don't know why. So there's still a mystery. Yeah. And she's just interesting. Like the fifth brother and Grand Inquisitor, they're the same, and they're the same in Rebels too. Like they are just the typical like villain. Like we need that guy to be evil. Right. But Reva is a villain that we actually want to know why. And we want to see what she has to say and what her end goal is. And at first, when the first 2 episodes came out, people were just not very happy with Reva. Yeah. I will admit, when when Reva went ahead and just kind of spoiled to Obi-Wan that Anakin is Vader.
Yeah, that did not go well.
I will admit, I was just kind of like, I don't know if this lifelong favorite franchise character, Obi-Wan Kenobi, finds out that Vader is Anakin.
Like the biggest news of his like life, pretty much. The biggest news.
To me, it was like, at first I was like, this, I don't really like
it. Doesn't
and then
seem
she
fitting,
kills the Grand Inquisitor, and I'm just like, but then I told myself, okay, this is the 2nd episode, just give it some time, and it does pay off. We find out that she's a youngling, and we find out that her motivations are actually getting to Vader, and that's so unique. Right. Like, we've never seen something like that before. Yeah. So
that's good. Yeah, people were very, very quick, unfairly so, I think.
I think that's just an issue of the times.
Yeah, it is, and I think that it makes sense because Disney has kind of broken the trust with Star Wars fans with some things like the sequels. There's some things that they haven't handled well outside of that, but there have been some good steps in the right direction with like The Mandalorian is a good example. And so, but I think overall, Star Wars fans are incredibly skeptical of the direction that Disney is willing to take things. And so I think people saw the character of Reva as a potential to kind of really derail a show that meant a lot to a lot of people. Yeah. And it seemed like it was going to go that way, but you can't, like, I mean, two episodes into a show, you're talking about being a third of the way through it. It's really unfair to start like writing off characters and, you know, just like unfairly criticizing writers for, they're literally just setting up the show. They haven't even gotten to the middle of it yet.
And I saw somewhere, I think it was like a thumbnail for some YouTube video. It was like, they finally fixed the plot holes. And I'm just like, they didn't finally fix the plot holes. You're just impatient.
Yeah, they were going to
like,
all along. Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it's true.
So, but speaking of plot holes, maybe we should start to dive into some things that the Obi-Wan show didn't really hit the mark on.
Yeah.
And we can start on a few things. For one thing, I think the show has a lot of awkward moments.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Especially shots and acting.
Yeah.
For example, the guy in the bar, the random Jedi.
Oh yeah.
What's his name? What's his name? Nara.
Nari. Something like that. Something like that.
He's like, what does he say? It just doesn't. It comes off weird. He's like, "You'll never get away with this," or something like that.
Yeah, I was like, "What are you talking about?"
Like his acting just wasn't.
You'll never get away with it.
And then like,
you're not gonna get away, pal. You're literally stuck. You're caught.
It was just weird.
But then his acting overall, I don't know if it's the fault of the actor. His voice didn't really seem fitting for the lines that he was delivering. I found his role in the show was kind of weird overall, but
he was just there to help Obi-Wan continue.
For sure.
That was it.
For sure.
Like, but then there was like shots that was just off. Like,
there was more too. There was Leia getting away, or initially like trying to run away from the people that kidnapped her. Like that whole sequence was like
just awful,
so bad.
She just runs into the dude, to the Red Hot Chili Pepper dude.
Yeah,
she just runs into him, and I'm just like, why would you run straight towards this man? Like you don't even know who he is.
Yeah,
and then they chase her through the woods, and it's like, okay,
they could have done without that entire chase thing. And there's there's quite a few things that fans have said has taken them out of the show, like quote unquote taken them out of it. A lot of them I don't agree with. I think that is the one that I do, where I was just like watching the show, this sequence of them, and I was like kind of like laughing at how comical it was. But yeah,
but then you got like episode, like, okay, so you have a bunch of weird shots, but then I would say like the entirety of episode
4, episode 4 is like
weird,
dude. Yeah. Episode 4 has as many memeable moments, I think, as like some of the prequels. Like
just that entire structure is
like when Tala slaps that stormtrooper, like literally overhand slaps him.
Well, it's just the whole setup of that episode. Just, I mean, when he's in the bantha tank, what is it called?
Bacta.
When he's in that tank, that could have been a great opportunity to like slow down a little bit, and maybe get some flashbacks in, but episode 4 just kind of jumped right back into those tropes. And on top of that, it had just weird setups, weird dialogue, the weird occasions where she like slaps a stormtrooper, where
they're like smuggling Leia out underneath their trench coat. It's
God.
like
no one saw them. And then a ship randomly saves them, another trope.
And then Wade,
just like
R.I.P.
Yeah, and then everyone's like upset about Wade, but we don't know.
We don't even know who he is.
So it was never established.
Yeah, man. Episode 4, and it's what you said about like him in the Bacta could have been such a great moment, because he just lost very badly to Vader, who not only like very handily beat him in a lightsaber duel, but then proceeded to like drag him through fire. It's pretty traumatic,
and then it's just over,
and then it's just over. And you start that episode and he's like in Bacta, and it's like every time we've seen a character in a Bacta tank, it usually comes with flashbacks, because that's kind of like what happens when you're healing and stuff like that. It's kind of like metaphorical. You're like healing from the past while you're healing with your wounds, and he's just sitting there, and he like kind of like flinches a couple times, and then he just like gets out of the tank, and you're like, whoa. First of all, where were the flashbacks? Second of all, you were in there for like 5 minutes. Are you like actually healed? And then he like goes on this entire rescue mission. So it just
happens so quickly.
Feels rushed.
My friend Josh mentioned, like, if you look at the Book of Boba Fett, like they overuse the flashbacks, and then Obi-Wan, where they should have used the flashbacks,
didn't use it at all. Yeah, it's kind of it was frustrating because that was episode 4. So yeah, up until episode 5, we hadn't seen any use of Hayden Christensen except for like that little weird vision in the desert.
Then we had the 2 Vader scenes,
and then Vader,
you saw his face, but it was just so quick.
With as much as Hayden was part of the promotional, like part of this show and kind of like the press tour and all that stuff, we were really expecting him to be like a big part of it. I mean, like literally, he was with Ewan for the entire press tour, and Ewan McGregor is like the leading, actor in the show. And halfway through the series, we've seen like literally like a minute of Hayden on screen. And so I was like, oh, back to maybe we'll get some cool flashbacks with Hayden Christensen in this as Anakin. And nope, we didn't get that. So it was
and they could have done something so easy.
Yeah,
like there's so much lore that you could have pulled from.
Like,
I mean, hell, the flashback that they did give us was from before episode 2.
And it was so simple, man. It wasn't even like it was just like this
so low budget.
Low budget. They're like in one location. They gave Hayden Christensen makeup. They didn't de-age him digitally.
Obi-Wan looked the same.
He looked the same. So it was, but don't get me wrong, that added tremendously to episode 5. And I think episode 5 is people's favorites largely because of the incorporation of that flashback and tying it to the present. But, that was like, it's a shame that was one episode out of 6 that had that kind of thing, and it's not that, I don't think it's fair to say that people had unfair and unrealistic expectations of Hayden Christensen being in it. I think with the amount that he was a part of promoting it leading up to the show, you're just like, he's like, oh, he's going to be a big part of the show. Like that's just kind of what you expect with that. If he was hardly in any of the press, then you'd be like, oh man, maybe he's just there to like be in the Vader suit. But that wasn't the impression that we got, you know? So.
And back to what you were saying about episode 5. Yeah, I truly think it is the best episode out of the 6, followed by 3, 1, and 6. Like I think those are the best, and then I would say 2 is just all right, and then 4 is the worst. But definitely episode 5 just blew me away. The flashbacks were so great, and seeing Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor back again together. Such a treat.
I agree with the order of your favorites. I think 5 was by far probably the best, most impactful one, and then the others were close seconds. And I think they're all kind of it's a toss up between all of them. The fights between Obi-Wan and Hayden are interesting. Both of them kind of had some split opinions. Mostly the fight in episode 3, their first fight, had some very polarizing things going on with it. And so a lot of people didn't understand why Vader let him get away at the end. What appears to like, he like literally let him kind of get rescued. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I've heard a lot of backlash about that fight as well. And I honestly think the first fight is it's fine. Like I understand where Obi-Wan's coming from. Like he's just heard about his like lifelong friend turning to the dark side. Like he can't even believe it. Like I mean, if I was him too, I would be like struggling to fight him too. Like I mean, I wouldn't want to fight my friend either, or just all that trauma at the same time. It would be very difficult to put up with that. Like you're just going through so much. So do I think Obi-Wan was like too weak? Like was he not putting up enough of a fight? No, I think it was fine. I don't understand where the backlash is coming from this fight. The problem I have with the fight is the end, where he just kind of lets him go away, and you can come up with ideas as to why, but I mean that's really the only issue I have.
I think Kenobi getting bested in that fight. Makes total sense. Because it's like very established at this point in the show that he's very rusty. He hasn't touched his lightsaber. His lightsaber has literally been buried in the desert for 10 years. And he hasn't really been in tune with the Force at all. He's been suppressing his connection to the Force just to kind of stay undercover. So he's like very, very out of kind of his usual Jedi like kind of training and stuff like that. So he's not very kept up in that area. And so I think it makes sense for him to lose. But yeah, him getting kind of like rescued for no apparent reason is weird, because we saw him getting dragged through the flames, and then when Vader was kind of done doing that, he like used the Force to put out the fire. Like he like stopped the fire with the Force. And so when Tala comes to rescue him, shoots the thing and the flames go up again, it's like, why doesn't he just do the same thing? And the only thing that I can really like rationalize with it is that he was just kind of disappointed in this version of Obi-Wan, that it wasn't really worth going after. It's kind of like, you got to understand from the mindset of Vader, like Obi-Wan took everything from him in a lot of ways. And he was searching and hunting for him for 10 years to kind of like get his revenge, get justice, make him pay in the same way that he did. And when he finally gets this big climactic moment, Obi-Wan is this frail, weak, old former shell of himself Jedi that doesn't hold a candle to Vader. And it's just like all too easy, and it's disappointing. And it's like, I don't know, you strive so long to achieve this certain thing, but if it's like, it feels like handed to you in the end, it's like, how much do you really want it anymore, you know? And so that's the only thing I can kind of think in terms of that. And I think there's something to be said about Vader kind of playing some psychological warfare, in the sense that now that Obi-Wan knows how strong Vader is, he's going to like be very scared of him. And I heard it this way: the anticipation of death is worse than death itself. So Obi-Wan's going to be fearing for his life just in knowing that Vader could kill him at any potential, time. So I think it can make sense. I don't think it was very clearly communicated, but it was kind of left more to interpretation. But yeah, I think it can make sense.
Yeah, I think the real fight that had more issue was the episode 6 fight.
Yeah.
I felt like that fight should have been a lot more slowed down. I feel like it was emphasized on this, like the actual choreograph of it, not like between the two.
Yeah.
Like the reason why the fights in the original saga or the original trilogy are so special is because they're very emotional. They're very character driven.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's what this should have been.
Yeah.
It should have been like Luke and Vader and Empire.
Yeah.
But instead it was kind of like a skeptical show.
Yeah.
And you got all the rocks, and Anakin has the high ground again, which I mean was funny, but you have all these things, he buries them and just kind of walks away, and it's like, I mean, okay. But
we do get a little bit of that emotional moment at the end of the fight. But yeah, it's like Kenobi shows up, they exchange like two lines that are not very telling about anything. They're just like very on the nose lines. And then they just like go right at it. There's like no real build up, which I guess we've been building up for the entire series. But yeah, they just kind of swing their sabers at each other. There's some weird moments with the Force and Obi-Wan lifting like an entire planet worth of rocks at once. It's just like we've never seen him do anything like that. But yeah, I do agree with you. I think, and it doesn't feel the same, man. It doesn't feel like it holds the same emotional weight as even like some of the prequel fights do. Like Obi-Wan's fight with Darth Maul after Qui-Gon gets stabbed, like you feel the emotion in that. Or dude, even with like Dooku and Yoda and Attack of the Clones, like you feel. And
that's what I was just about to say next is the original trilogy, their fights were a lot like less
they were very
action packed, but they were character driven. But the prequels, I feel like, did it perfect, where they had both insane action, and the fight made sense. Like when Obi-Wan, when Qui-Gon gets killed, Obi-Wan just runs in there. That action is so well choreographed, and it is so fun to watch. But you also feel the fire inside of Obi-Wan. But that was a time and place. Like that was perfect.
Right.
But for this, you're right. Like he just kind of shows up. He just kind of says, "Hey, what's up?" And then they just start fighting, and it's just like there's no reason for it to be that way.
Right.
But I mean, honestly, Vader even being there in the first place shouldn't have happened. They should have kept chasing after the little pod.
Yeah. They the fights were better than the sequel trilogy, at least, which is good.
Yeah, well, at this point, anything's better than the sequels.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I guess at this point we should just kind of talk about, overall, like each episode, like ranking and just your overall take from the show.
Yeah.
So what did you think? So what's like a ranking of each episode? So like, what did you say of episode 1?
Episode 1 was strong. In the context of the rest of the series, not the worst, but not the best. I would give it like a 7.
7. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Like, it was a good setup. Like, it had everything what you needed, but it wasn't amazing. Like, it wasn't groundbreaking.
Right. Yeah. It was a good pilot, but nothing that like I don't think everyone expected kind of what episode 1 presented, I think. So
yeah. And then I would say episode 2 is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Just like
similar,
another
for sure.
7 out of 10. Just like
another 7. Nothing too crazy noteworthy.
Episode
3 was Episode 3 was really good. Probably one of the best probably one of the better ones, yeah, for sure. I would say probably like an 8.5.
Yeah, episode 3 was like my second favorite, I would say. Like I love the interactions between Obi-Wan and Leia and their dynamic, and how they talk about how he tells her about her mother, and how she's so smart and quick when the stormtroopers show up, and she's like, "Oh yeah, this is my father," and plus you have the fight with Vader, and there's just so much going on,
and the lead up to the fight where he shows up into that town for the first time, and he's like pulling these people out of their homes and like killing them, and that's epic.
Episode 3 was also the first episode to like really show what Disney's starting to do. Like they're really taking Star Wars and going to that PG-13 kind of rating. I mean, a stormtrooper literally gets sliced in half, and then this poor kid just gets his neck like broken by Vader. And it's like some really dark stuff. It's crazy.
It is, man.
Obi-Wan gets fried in front of you, and you're just like,
it was very dark. Yeah, it was a very dark episode, but I think it was good. It resonated. And then, 4 tragic.
To me, 4 is just a letdown, not because of how like bad it is, just because of the lost potential. Like to me, like 4 could have been a really good episode to like slow down and like explore things, but instead it was just trope after trope. And
it was literally a fan film of Fallen Order.
Yeah,
it was like if someone went, I want to make Fallen Order a real life film, they would make episode 4 of Kenobi.
Yeah, no, and there was also so many like weird things, like how did Tala teleport to Reva and like say, "Hey, I need to speak to you," like and then like them getting Leia out underneath his trench coat as they're walking by, and then like ridiculous, and then like the dialogue between Reva and Tala, and Tala's
like not good. Yeah,
it was a weird episode. Well, even in the beginning too, weird. When they're like talking to Rokin or Ice Cube's son or whatever, like Ice Cube.
Ice Cube, dude, all the music artists are Red Hot Chili members. Ice Cube. Still more screen time than Hayden, though.
But then we go right from like the worst episode into the best episode.
Into the best episode. Yeah, man. Episode 5 was different. Way better written. The flashback was great. Really like nice to open on that scene with Hayden, Ewan in Coruscant, like pre-Attack of the Clones too, like super interesting. And not only for us to get that flashback, but for it to like be intercut throughout the rest of the episode and to like actually serve a really good narrative purpose in kind of like paralleling what's happening currently with Vader and Kenobi, and that it's the same as it was back then. It was really good, really, really very, very well done.
Yeah, and just everything about that episode, like you know, them intruding and having that shootout, and then Obi-Wan giving himself up, and then Reva explaining her backstory. Right. And again, Anakin slicing kids on screen, like Disney really like doing new things out here. Like it's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy, but
fuck the kids, man. Disney's not about kids anymore.
But
man.
Also like the ending fight too, where like Vader basically stops a ship. And
dude, yeah, the action scenes in episode 5 I think are the best. Actually, I think better even than the finale.
Oh yeah, but because he like stops a ship, and this time like when the character stops a ship, it actually like makes sense and is meaningful.
Right. It's not Rey.
It's not just like I discovered
force lightning.
Somehow
like what? Chewie. Yeah, man. I don't know.
But
yeah, it's really good. It's so powerful because we like have never really seen a lot of Vader's power at this phase. We saw like his epic scene in Rogue One, but some of it in Rebels too. But like, yeah, this just shows how powerful he is, and it makes sense why everyone's freaking scared of him because he can do some of the shit that he does in this episode. But yeah.
Yeah, and then that fight, God,
the fight with Reva,
that was so good. Like he's just toying with her. He's just like, here, let me just take that from you, and then I'll just give you a lightsaber. You can fight me for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I love how he takes it, breaks it in half, tosses her one half, and he's like, yeah, if you really want to do this, I mean, but he doesn't touch his own lightsaber. It's great, bro. It's so good. Yeah.
But then we find out the Grand Inquisitor comes back, which he's back.
Yep, revenge does wonders for the will to live, is what he says.
Yeah.
Kind of explaining his survival, but also Reva's survival, because she gets stabbed.
Yeah.
For the second time. Again. Yeah, again.
But overall, episode 5, the best one out of the, I would give it honestly.
Yeah, like by 9, far. Like 9.5. Yeah. It's good.
And then we get into 6. And honestly, like when I first watched 6, I thought it was really underwhelming. As a finale.
I tend to agree.
For Obi-Wan. After watching it again, it's still underwhelming, but it's gotten a little better. I do think it's one of the better episodes, but I just as a finale though, it should have brought more to the table. And
it should have been longer. The fact that it was like the same runtime as the other episodes as a finale is kind of,
I mean,
it's like how much can you really fit into a 40-minute episode?
Yeah. But I also like really enjoyed like the stuff between Reva and Owen. Like I thought that was actually more interesting, honestly, than besides the Obi-Wan and Anakin having that heart-to-heart moment.
Yeah, that was excellent. Yeah,
I really thought that Reva going into Owen's house, and it was just interesting because here are these farmers and they actually have been preparing for this, and they put up a fight, and it was really cool to see that. And then her little redemption arc too, that was really interesting too. But yeah, I mean that interaction between Obi-Wan and Anakin, you were saying was some of the best Star Wars.
Yeah, the man seeing Hayden behind the mask I feel like it was really needed, because I think it's hard, even as fans who like we know the whole story and we've seen all of it, right? To kind of like bridge the gap between Anakin and Vader, because they're just like wildly different. I mean, Anakin was kind of like an arrogant kid, but also he was like really nice, love. He had great relationships with Obi-Wan, and it's just like for him to become this like menacing, figure that's like all black. He's like terrifying. It was hard to kind of like bridge that, and so seeing him, like the prequel face of Anakin beneath the Vader mask, is great, man. And it was so heartbreaking, like seeing Obi-Wan recognize him under there and be like, oh my God, that actually is Anakin. And he's like disfigured and messed up because of how I left him on Mustafar. and he just like wells up and he's like, I'm sorry for all of it. It's just like, oh dude, it's so sad.
Yeah. And you know, that also ties up with A New Hope too, where
it does.
Obi-Wan says, you know, people of mine killed Vader or Anakin or something like that. He says like Vader kills Anakin.
Yeah, he said Vader. Yeah, Vader killed Anakin, which is exactly what Vader told him. Like told Obi-Wan.
And then if you notice too, Obi-Wan leaves and he says, "Okay, goodbye, Darth." And that's what he calls him.
Yeah, in A New Hope. It's good. It ties it in well. I thought that entire exchange was great, and it added so much. And it really brought both of their arcs full circle and kind of progressed them into the next stage, because it's kind of able to give Obi-Wan a lot of closure, which is what he was lacking throughout the entire series. And it's why he ended up being like as despairing as he was at the beginning of the series, is because he was just like, he was devastated about what had happened and he couldn't really like move on from it. And so for Vader to say, I'm not your failure, and then, you know, you didn't kill Anakin, I did, is like, it kind of took all of that off of Obi-Wan's shoulders. And it was great. It was good, man.
Yeah. And then the villain, Reva, that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I thought she was very interesting. She gets a nice redemption arc, and
she does, yeah.
I really enjoyed seeing that. Like, I thought it was very unique and interesting. And when she lays Luke down and Obi-Wan tells her like, "Hey, you did the right thing here," it was nice because you see them going back and forth at each other the entire series, and then they have that little interaction there at night in the sand. It was a really nice, sweet ending.
I hate sand. Yeah, man. How many lightsabers are in the sands of Tatooine now?
I don't want to know. I don't count those other.
And Luke hasn't found any of them.
But then the other thing I want to touch upon is the Leia finale, like the closing of it. And I think that was also handled really well. Because now when you watch A New Hope and Leia is talking to Obi-Wan and she's like, you know, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. And then you just see Obi-Wan, like, you know, just scratching his beard.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, oh shit, Leia's in trouble again?
He's like, here we go again.
And then, like, he doesn't have that interaction with Luke yet. So it's actually kind of fun. It's
good, yeah. It adds a lot.
But the biggest thing for episode 6 that I was happy about was seeing Qui-Gon Jinn again.
Qui-Gon. Yeah. Finally, man, after teasing him for the entire series.
After
he shows up.
24 years? Is it 24?
Yeah. 99, yeah.
It's been a long time.
That's crazy, dude.
22 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, it was cool. It was cool seeing him. It was really short, and his reasoning for not showing up sooner was kind of dumb. Like, I was always here. You just couldn't see. You know, I was like, okay, but whatever. It
wasn't handled well, but it's one of those things where it's like, it's Qui-Gon.
Do you really care? Yeah.
It's like, I wish it was handled well, because, you know, when Yoda says, I'm going to train you to speak to Qui-Gon, it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense that he hasn't succeeded for the past 10 years, especially considering like Yoda was supposed to be like helping him. Yeah. And So overall, it was really sweet.
Episode 6, I would give like 7 and a half. 7. Really? You give it a 9?
No, wait. Maybe I misspoke. Sorry. I don't know. Maybe like an 8.
It really? Okay.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
I think the scene between Obi-Wan and Anakin alone raises that. Yeah. Raises its score a lot. It was yeah.
So with all those scores in, I would say that the show is a solid, like, just 7 and just because it had so many things going for it, and I just think it underperformed on all the exciting things that they could have done. But at the same time, it was still really fun. And
it's weird because it's like, is it a good show? Yes. You might even argue it's a great show. I mean, based on some of the other like Disney Star Wars stuff that we've gotten, it's like pretty damn good for them. The issue is the amount of potential you have for a show with with Hayden Christensen, Ewan McGregor coming back as their characters from the prequels, you could do a lot, and you could make it really good. And the show tries to do some interesting things with Qui-Gon. Reva's a really interesting character. Bringing Leia into it's really interesting, but there's just a lot that it could have really delivered on that it didn't. And I think honestly, the biggest disappointment is just like the lack of Hayden on screen as Anakin. Like, he was Vader a lot. Like, supposedly anytime it was close-ups of Vader, he was in the suit. Because he just like wasn't tall enough to be playing Vader like in the wide shots where you actually see his height. But he was in the Vader suit a lot. Obviously, he was in a flashback, and then he was in the last little shot of him with his helmet kind of like gashed open. So he was there, but I mean, just like not enough for him to be as present as he was in the marketing and that kind of stuff. Him not being in the show in a bigger role was kind of the biggest letdown, I think.
Yeah. And, you know, there's a lot of things that the show could have improved upon, but, you know, I always like to say it like this. Should this show exist? Like, technically, no. But am I glad it exists? Yes. Like, it's just kind of one of those things. I'm just kind of happy it exists, but at the same time, you know, there's always room for more.
Right.
But I'm not mad. It's weird. It's just, I'm not mad, but I am kind of disappointed. But I'm also happy.
You really
I'm also
are,
happy. So there's so many things. But I guess that's
it's hard.
Star
it's
Wars
like
at the end of the day. Like, there's just so much to love and so much to.
It's like at the end of the day, we really should be like excited and happy with any new Star Wars content that comes out. You know, like they're pumping a lot of money into these things to make it happen for us. And so I don't understand like the unfair criticism towards it. What I do really understand is that it's just kind of hard to accept what we got with that show, knowing what it could have been. Yeah. Like it's hard to just be like okay with it, because it just had so much room for potential to be like, probably like, honestly, it could have been in the right hands better than the prequels. And it could have just, you know, been huge for kind of rebuilding the relationship between Disney and the Star Wars fans. And it just didn't, man.
Yeah, that's true. Disney could have really won the hearts really back. And after the sequel trilogy, especially.
Yeah. I don't understand, man. Cause like we've seen it with Mandalorian, obviously Clone Wars and stuff. When Dave Filoni and like Jon Favreau are like working on Star Wars projects together, they kill it. Like they handle Star Wars the way that any fan would, and they add obviously their expertise to that. And so I just don't know why they don't kind of like lead every project.
Well, and that's what I was wondering too, but this project felt more like a Kennedy production.
Right? It kind of felt like she sat in a pitch meeting and was just like, what if Anakin and Obi-Wan like fought before A New Hope? And everyone was just like, Kathleen, they can't. And she was like, yeah. But what if they did? And she was like,
I think what happened is Dave and John had a lot of input on the show, but at the end of the day, I feel like Kennedy was the one that really gave the okay for some reason on this show. Like, I don't know why. Out of all the shows, like, why would you do this one? To like, but I don't know. I heard that John and Dave were actually the ones that mentioned having Anakin and Obi-Wan fight again, but I don't know if that's true.
No, I'm not sure.
But I don't know. It's just weird. I feel like what Kennedy did is she gave like John and Dave like, okay, go make your own thing. I'm gonna watch over, this, but you can go do your own thing. And that own thing turned out to be amazing. And
it was a huge risk, man. That's I've heard a lot of people compare The Mandalorian to the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. No, and I just like, I can't even like comprehend that comparison, because they're kind of polar opposites. It's like you have a brand new concept with brand new characters in the form of The Mandalorian that as a show objectively is phenomenal. And then you add in some of the really like awesome fan service that we got with that show, and it just becomes like elite. But what makes those cameos like so impactful is the fact that we actually care about the show regardless. Yeah. Like, and what I mean by that is, season 2 finale of The Mandalorian, we care about the entire situation that's going on with Mando, with Grogu, with the dark saber and all that stuff. We care about all that so much because we care about the characters and we're invested in the story. Yeah. And then, when we're in this moment when all hope is lost and it doesn't seem like there's a way out, and then Luke Skywalker shows up, like one of the most beloved characters in all of cinema, it just like is the perfect little cherry on top.
Yeah.
Whereas you have the Kenobi show that does the exact opposite. It plays only on the things that were built in the prequels. The highlights of the shows are the ones that are just like paying homage to what came before it. And they're the ones that are doing the fan service and stuff like that. Whereas all of the new elements like Riva, some of the other things that, were tried to, they were haphazardly incorporated in the show. Those were like really some of the lowest points in the show. So I can't even like put them on the same level. I think The Mandalorian is just significantly better.
The Disney shows go like this. I think Boba Fett is probably the worst, but just by default.
Yeah.
Because I do think Boba Fett is a good show, and I would actually like to talk about that sometime, like maybe as like a special episode.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I do think it's underrated. But anyway,
I do. Yeah.
I think Boba Fett is by default the worst, and then it would go Kenobi, and then The Mandalorian. But it's funny you say, like The Mandalorian is its own show, but it even includes people from the other lore.
Right. Ahsoka is another huge example.
Yeah. So it includes a lot of people, and it still manages to have a better season 2 than Obi-Wan did. So
yeah, man. Book of Boba Fett is another kind of example where it's like you have this character with so much prestige and is loved so unanimously. It's like if you can't do it great, don't touch that character. Like don't do a spinoff show.
Really
don't even bother.
Yeah.
It's like you're either gonna really, really put all of your effort and resources towards making it something that's really, really good, or just don't bother. Well, like we won't be upset if you don't make a show about Quinlan Vos. Yeah. But if you do, make it good,
Yeah, like they had so many interesting ideas for that show. It wasn't executed correctly, but Obi-Wan had a lot of interesting ideas that was executed a little bit better, but still not as good.
So, right, for sure.
But at the end of the day, like I said before, I'm happy. Like I will be happy with Kenobi, and I don't know. I'm excited for these new shows coming out, like Andor and Bad Batch Season 2. But at the end of the day, like I probably will be more excited for Kenobi than I will for any of these other shows. Yeah. So
Kenobi Season 2, what do you think?
I don't think it's going to happen, but there's rumors, but I still don't think
there's rumors. Yeah. I hope not, man. I hope that they just leave it as it was and don't try to make more money off of it.
Yeah.
You did what you did. It's funny. People are like, at the end in the season finale, they teased a more interesting show, and I'm more interested in that than I am in what actually happened. And I was like, dang, more interested in watching Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon like roam around the desert.
What are their conversations?
Hello there.
Well,
man.
Your shirt is actually teasing our next talking point.
For those just listening to the podcast and not watching on YouTube, I'm wearing a Pizza Planet shirt, which oddly enough, I don't think the Pizza Planet truck was in this movie. But for episode 2, we're going to be reviewing Lightyear. I almost said lightsaber.
Same company. The same company.
Yeah. Legit. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about Lightyear, which is going to be really interesting. New movie came out really recently. That's got a lot. It's really hot in the media right now.
It's got a lot of controversy, which would be fun.
Got a lot of controversy. Yeah.
Interesting to talk about.
So we're excited for that. We're excited to be doing a podcast, man. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure you keep listening and support us. We're gonna get better over time.
And like Andy just said, we really love talking about movies, and I had a lot of fun just doing this one episode with you twice, actually, both times. Yeah. Even the second time, I'm like right now, I'm really enjoying it again.
This is our second time doing this.
But
So if you do want the extended version of this episode, let us know. But man, we're so excited.
Thank you guys for watching and
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah.
But yeah, episode 2, Lightyear, next time.
Yeah, next week we're gonna try to do every Friday, so make sure you're on the lookout for new episodes from the Film School Dropouts. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.